The frozen Russian winter, 1942. A lone figure lies motionless in the snow. Through her scope, Lyudmila Pavlichenko watches German officers below. They call her Lady Death. 309 confirmed kills. But this shot is different. This time, she knows what happens if they catch her alive. What you're about to hear isn't in your history books. This is a story so dark that even the victors try to bury it. When Hitler unleashed Operation Barbarossa against the Soviet Union, his orders were clear. This is a war of extermination. But for Soviet women who dare to fight back, the Nazis reserved a special kind of brutality. A brutality so extreme that for 80 years, survivors couldn't speak of it. They wanted to prove we were actually women, whispers a surviving Night Witch pilot, her hands shaking. That was just the beginning of the horror. The lucky ones were shot immediately. Female pilots who struck such terror into German forces that they offered Iron Crosses to any pilot who could shoot them down. Flying wooden planes that were basically flying coffins, these women would cut their engines mid-flight, gliding silently over German camps. The only warning soldiers had was a soft whooshing sound, like a witch's broomstick. But captured night witches didn't go to regular POW camps. They disappeared into special interrogation centers. Most were never seen again. These women have abandoned their natural duties. They are to be treated with maximum severity. But even these cold words couldn't capture the reality of what happened to those captured alive. Maria Oktyabrskaya, the Nazis' worst nightmare. After they killed her husband, she sold everything she owned to buy a T-34 tank, named it Fighting Girlfriend. When the Germans learned a woman was destroying their tanks, their fury knew no bounds. Rosa Shanina, 19 years old, 54 confirmed kills. The Germans called her the Invisible Terror. Her diary, found frozen in the snow near her body, reads, "The men tell us to save one bullet for ourselves. The Germans take special pleasure in breaking us." Nina Lobkovskaya, a Jewish sniper, kept poison hidden in her boot. "We all did," she revealed decades later. The Germans had special procedures for Jewish women soldiers. Death by our own hand was mercy. The psychological warfare was relentless. The Germans dropped leaflets describing in graphic detail what awaited captured women soldiers. They photographed their interrogations and made sure the images reached Soviet lines. But instead of breaking morale, these tactics only hardened their resolve. Marina Raskova's 588th Night Bomber Regiment wasn't supposed to exist. Their planes, obsolete P-2 biplanes made of wood and canvas, weren't supposed to be effective. But what these women achieved would rewrite military history. "Our planes carried only 2 bombs. Nadezhda Popova's voice crackles in a rare recording. 2 bombs, no parachutes, no radio, no guns. But we had something better. We had rage. Their tactics were suicidal by any military standard. Flying at treetop level, they would cut their engines near the target, gliding in silence. German soldiers called this sound the whisper of death. In one night, a single crew could fly 18 missions. They'd return with their canvas wings shredded by anti-aircraft fire, their planes held together by determination alone. Lyudmila Pavlichenko didn't start the war as a sniper. She was a history student. But by 1942, she had become something else, a ghost that haunted German officers, a shadow that could wait days for a single perfect shot. The Germans started sending their own snipers to hunt us, reads her diary. They called it witch hunting. But they didn't understand. We weren't hunting for glory. We were hunting for vengeance. Rosa's story is particularly haunting. At 19, she was already famous for her doublets, hitting 2 targets with 2 rapid shots. The German propaganda called her the beautiful horror. They offered rewards for her capture. But Rosa knew better than to be taken alive. Her diary, recovered after her death, reveals the psychological burden these women carried. "Today I saw what they did to Tatiana. They left her body where we could see it. The things they did. I now understand why we carry the extra bullet." Maria Oktyabrskaya's story sounds like fiction. After learning of her husband's death, she sold everything, her house, her belongings, even her clothes, to buy a T-34 tank. The military initially refused to let her drive it. 3 weeks later, she had destroyed 5 German tanks and 2 anti-tank guns. Fighting Girlfriend became legendary on both sides. German tank commanders were ordered to prioritize its destruction, not for tactical reasons, but because the idea of a woman commanding a tank was considered an insult to German manhood. They didn't expect us to understand machines, Alexander Samosenko recalled in a 1962 interview. They didn't expect us to fight, but most of all, they didn't expect us to be better than their men. That's what truly terrified them, the interrogation centers. What happened in these centers remained classified until 2012. The documents, finally unsealed, reveal a systematic program designed not just to break these women, but to erase their very identity as soldiers. Wehrmacht Order 24601. Female combatants are to be processed differently from male prisoners. Their treatment should serve as a deterrent to others of their gender who might consider taking up arms. They would parade us naked in front of their troops. Nina Petrova testified in 1965. They wanted to prove we were just women, not soldiers. But with each humiliation, we became stronger. We learned to fear nothing because we had seen the worst humanity could offer, the psychological war. The Germans' obsession with female Soviet soldiers revealed something deeper than military strategy. It exposed their fundamental fear not of defeat, but a world where women could be their equals in combat. Captured German documents show special propaganda units dedicated solely to dealing with female Soviet soldiers. They produced leaflets, films, and radio broadcasts, all focused on one message. These women were abominations that had to be destroyed. They thought they could break our spirit by showing us what they did to our captured sisters, Maria Smirnova wrote. They taught us why we could never surrender. By 1944, the tide had turned. As the Soviet army pushed westward, they discovered what had happened in those special interrogation centers. The response was terrible. Female snipers who had once taken prisoners now left none alive. The night witches switched from military targets to officer quarters. Tank commanders like Maria Oktyabrskaya began ramming German vehicles instead of shooting them. 1944 to 1945. As the Red Army pushed toward Berlin, the German response to female soldiers became even more extreme. Facing defeat, they doubled down on their brutality, but they hadn't counted on what these women had become. By 1944, we weren't the same women who started the war. Yevdokia Zaveli, commander of Marine Infantry Platoon, wrote, "We had seen too much, lost too many sisters. When we entered German territory, we were made of steel and vengeance." The battle for Berlin revealed how much had changed. Female snipers who once hesitated now took possible shots. The night witches flew, without regard for their own survival, sometimes ramming their wooden planes into German targets when they ran out of bombs. A recovered SS document from April 1945 reveals their final orders regarding female Soviet soldiers. These warriors must not reach Berlin alive. They have proven more dangerous than their male counterparts. Their existence threatens everything we believe. For decades after the war, both sides buried these stories. The Soviets, because these women challenged traditional military doctrine. The Germans, because what they did to them revealed the darkest depths of their ideology. Recently declassified KGB files reveal why so many records were sealed. The testimonies were considered too disturbing for public release. The medical reports from liberated interrogation centers were sealed until 2037. They wanted us to forget Claudia Kalugina recorded in 1970. But how do you forget watching your sisters choose suicide over capture? How do you forget the sounds from those interrogation centers? We didn't want to remember, but we couldn't forget. The post-war years brought a different kind of battle. Many survivors couldn't return to civilian life. The trauma was too deep. Others found themselves fighting for recognition in a society that wanted to forget their sacrifices. They gave us medals but told us to be quiet about what really happened. Tatiana revealed in her 1975 memoir. They said nobody would believe it anyway. But we know, the dead know, the Germans know. Today, military protocols for female POWs exist because of what happened to these Soviet women. Their suffering led to changes in international law and military doctrine. But the full impact of their story is only now being understood. What these women endured fundamentally changed how we think about gender and warfare, explains military historian Dr. Anna Krylova. They proved that courage is no gender, but they paid an unimaginable price for that proof. Their story continues to influence military thinking. Modern female soldiers train using manuals that incorporate lessons learned from Soviet women warriors. But more importantly, their sacrifice ensured that no future generation would face what they faced. We weren't just fighting for victory, reads the last entry in Rosa Shanina's diary. We were fighting for the right of women to be warriors, to be seen as soldiers, not curiosities. That fight continues. Even now, new evidence emerges. In 2020, a cache of photographs was discovered in a former Wehrmacht officer's attic. They show something extraordinary: German soldiers' faces as they realize they've been defeated by women. The Night Witches flew over 30,000 missions. Female snipers accounted for more than 12,000 confirmed kills. Women tank commanders destroyed hundreds of German vehicles. But numbers don't tell the real story. The real story is about women who faced worse than death and chose to fight anyway. About pilots who flew without parachutes, snipers who waited days for one shot, tank commanders who drove straight into enemy fire. It's about a generation of women who proved that courage knows no gender and paid the ultimate price for that proof. They wanted to write us out of history, says the last surviving knight, which in a 2019 interview. But our story survived like we survived, because the truth, like women warriors, cannot be destroyed. In 2024, the last sealed file about the Soviet women warriors will be opened, but perhaps some stories are better left untold. As one survivor wrote, "The truth is in our nightmares. Let the dead keep their secrets." This story isn't just history. It's a warning about what happens when ideology confronts reality. It's a testament to courage that transcends gender. Most of all, it's a debt we owe, not just to remember these women, but to ensure their sacrifice was not in vain. They tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. Soviet female veteran, 1965.